Now, we are ready to start the business agenda. And the first session will be dedicated to digital sovereignty. The political standoff in the world has created a huge debate over dependency on tech giants. Russia has gained unique experience in this process and it is ready to share it. How to create a technological infrastructure based on safety, openness and technological sovereignty. And we have on this scene Fyodor Lukyanov, moderator, editor-in-chief of Russia in Global Affairs Journal and chairman of the Presidium of Council on Foreign and Defense Policy. Eduardo Villegas Mejias, Ambassador, Extraordinary and Plenipotentiary of Mexico in the Russian Federation. Yuri Maximov, co-founder of Cyberus Fund and also co-founder of Positive Technologies. Sergei Sivilev, the Minister of Energy of the Russian Federation. Maksud Shadayev, the Minister of the Russian Federation for Digital Development, Telecoms and Mass Communications. Denis Baranov, Positive Technologies CEO. And Dr. Ahmed Mustafa Al-Isawi, Director of Personnel Office of His Excellency Sheikh Suhaim bin Ahmed Nasser Al Thani, Investment Director of AI-Aided Business.
Добрый день, доброе утро, не знаю.
A very good morning. I think it is morning still, not yet good afternoon, distinguished guests and distinguished colleagues. I think this entourage is very impressive. This is my first experience of speaking at the stadium. I mean, you do feel like a star in a different space, not the space I'm personally accustomed to, and that's great. The first show that we have seen has, I think, demonstrated that the cyber world is so much different from the rest of the world. And it's very long ago since last time so many countries were represented in one event. Of course, a lot of people get guests from across the globe, but there are very few events where so many countries would be present on one stage. And this, I think, showcases what we're going to discuss in this event. This very big specialty of the cyber world, which I think gives us everything that we need to understand about the world that we live in. On the one hand, the world that we're living in is a world of conflict. I don't think this needs to be explained to anyone. This happens around our country. And this is happening around, almost any other country. The era when there was an illusion that classic conflicts are obsolete, military force will just not be used anymore, violence and coercion will just not be used anymore, that it's all obsolete, that illusion, unfortunately, has gone. We can see that the world is a very, very hard place. The international system is being restructured, and just like any time in history, it's really happening in a very violent way. I don't want to upset anyone, but I think we won't live to see a stable world and a stable world order. We will live through this era of conflict and restructuring. But there is a flip side to this. And it sounds like a paradox. Even being a very hard place to live in, the world is not getting fragmented. The world is not splitting into a plethora of conflicting parties. the world stays one united place. This is a paradox which we have not yet seen in history. We are used to a world being in a conflict, all world being in conflict. Sometimes there were conflicts with very, very strict and very, very real boundaries. There was a Cold War, right? There was one camp, there is another camp, and they just can coexist and barely work with one another. Or there was an era when everyone seemed united. Now it's one thing together with the other. For people like me, specialists in foreign relations, this is a great challenge because the classic models that we're accustomed to are not applicable to this new world. And this brings me, sorry for this long introduction, this brings me to the fact that the brightest showcasing of this we can see in the cyber world. Cyber world is a world of many dangers. Cyber world is a very hard place to live in, but we can't split it. It is still a connected world, and how to live in it, the topic that we're going to discuss, the digital sovereignty, I think, is the quintessence of this. Sovereignty means that we are apart from everyone else. But when we add the word digital to this, well, you understand, digit is digit everywhere. Digital is digital, and it just can't happen that our digital is not the same as your digital. So we are living in this very unique period of history, and I think this is a great example to look at it. Now, let's start from the basics. I understand that everybody in this audience really know what we're talking about. I don't know what you're all talking about, and I'm actually a dummy in this. And I will start a very basic question to Minister Shadayev, whose job is to answer all these questions after all. Okay, Maksud, when I hear the words digital sovereignty, this is what I imagine, right? So, circling the digital wagons, right? Fortress, and there is a ditch around that fortress. A state looks very suspiciously at everyone else, and defense tries to understand what to defend against, right? However, something tells me that it doesn't quite work like this. So what is digital sovereignty? Is this our capacity to circle the wagons, or is this our capacity to stay open but invulnerable in this big world? Good morning, and thank you for the question. From the point of view of my Ministry of Digital, digital sovereignty sounds very, very simple. It's about our capacity, irrespectively of big political movements and sanctions and what have you, irrespectively of all this, our capacity to protect our state, the users of our digital, their ability to consume the digital services they are used to. That's about the users and the interests of the state. It's about our national security. I mean, taken broadly, the broad definition of sovereignty. In this new reality, I'll be very frank with you, at one moment we thought that Russia would be disconnected from the internet exchange points and that the security certificates that make it possible for us to address a lot of websites. And those certificates have been issued by international organizations, so they would be revoked. And on the whole, our users would actually be unable to do the very simple things on the web that they are accustomed to. So our basic task was just keeping the lights on. This is what a lot of really most IT people do on a daily basis. But the second thing was to keep our capacity for improvement, our capacity to advance ourselves at the same pace as the whole world. So the lights should still be on, and irrespectively of the sanctions and restrictions that we're all facing, we should keep this ability to advance ourselves. The possibility, the feasibility of reproducing those big stack of technologies, this is not a country can do single-handedly. This is about working with friendly countries to do it together. Russia actually is the first country in the world to create this attempt to protect our interests against the quote-unquote big tech of the world. We were actually the first to adopt the laws on landing of the data within our jurisdiction, that big tech had to open offices and big representations within our jurisdiction. At first, a lot of people said that we're crazy. Now we understand that we were just the first in a big queue, which ensued afterwards. Big techs really have a lot of power because they have penetrated our lives. And if they deplatform users, if they deservice users, and we all know all those stories about, deplatforming Russian artists and pop stars from YouTube, we all know those stories, right? There is no dialogue about this, there is no explanation about this, you're just being deplatformed and that's it. So one component of sovereignty, of being sovereign, is to have the capability to talk to the big tech world and defend your interests. So the lights should be on, and we should be capable of reproducing our own solutions, and we should be capable of defending our interests vis-à-vis the big tech. So these are the three things. Okay. Just, I would want to clarify this. Big techs, they are called big because they are, big. And they are powerful. And they are powerful even when they stand against even the biggest countries, right? So, if you look at it externally, you would say, well, you, Russian Federation, you're a powerful country, but you're still vulnerable because they can switch you off. But they don't do this. Are we something that they need? Well, we are maybe not the biggest market in the world, but we are a sizable market. Secondly, all big techs actually recognize this. Russia is a unique country in terms of how quickly the digital innovations penetrate day-to-day lives. Actually, all the innovations that they introduce, Russia is always the first to consume at scale. Apple, for example, says that contactless payment service was the biggest in Russia. So it became a scaled activity in developed countries when Russians were actually paying in a contactless way everywhere. So a lot of people look at Russia as a lighthouse for this. And a lot of people across the big tech community understand that even though they position themselves as purely commercial companies, they have become an infrastructure of influence. And most of them are American, most of them come from the US, and they are conductors or conduits for some special interests. And, but nonetheless, deplatforming us is also very painful to them because they want to keep this ability to influence. Okay. Then I pass on to a country. Well, you have mentioned the United States, and the United States are the most powerful source of influence. I would like to ask our Mexican ambassador, right? Your Excellency, you live very close to the United States, and please don't take offense, in the shadow of the United States, just because the United States is such a big country, right? And we can see that Mexico is being very hotly debated within the United States. Mexico has become the factor of internal politics in the United States. Are you capable of keeping your digital sovereignty against the United States? Because we understand that Mexico is part of this space occupied by these big techs, American big techs. Thank you.
You know, we have a long border with the US, 3,000 kilometers. It's more or less the distance from Moscow to Paris. So it's a very long distance and a very long border. And of course, it is not only the geographical proximity, but it is as well the interconnection of both countries, as you said. And there are a number of problems regarding this interconnectivity with the US. One of them is somehow the dependence, technological dependence and infrastructure dependence. Not only Mexico, but many countries have a problem with, software. And for instance, I've seen here in Russia, in many institutions, notwithstanding the sanctions and so on, you still rely on Windows as your main system. And I've always asked them, why don't you use Linux or some homemade system? And they said, oh, we will. We will use our own system, but it will be done later. Maybe the minister here can give us some insight on this. But the problems I identify with this dependence is mainly one, infrastructure and access to high-speed internet in Mexico, because you have in big cities like Mexico City, Guadalajara, Monterrey, you have high-speed internet. But I think it happens as well in Russia, that and in many other countries, that when you go outside to the countryside, you don't have proper internet access, or it is a low-quality internet. So the problem is that the state as such has to subsidize this internet access. And that is on the hardware part, but on the other side, you have as well the skills development, because we rely mostly on English-speaking programs, so to speak. If you use, I don't know, many programs like Python or whatever, you use mainly programs that are written for the English-speaking people. So it implies that you have to orient yourself as a country to an English-speaking, it means to another country. And that creates some not only dependence, but you always lag behind. And I think it happens as well in Russia, that you have to program as well in English or in English-related programs. So I think these problems, the infrastructure and the skills and the development of proper skills, that we have to face as a country.
Yes, and Eduardo has just touched upon this very, very pertinent topic, and I would like to ask Yuri about this. I'll give you an example from a different sphere, but I think this is an applicable example. The dollar is the reserve currency. And the dollar is so strong across the world, not just because the United States is the strongest country, it has the military bases, it has the economy, and so on, but because the dollar is so convenient, right? Having dollars as legal tender is of great convenience. It is much simpler than to think about national currencies and all the workarounds and so on. Sergey, I think, can give us more insight into that. All these workarounds around the dollar They are very, very complicated. So people are in the comfort zone, and people get accustomed to this. Everything is okay, everything is working. Why do you need anything more? Russia has been pushed out of this comfort zone. Russia may have never left it on its own accord, but it was pushed out. So my first question is, have we got any new opportunities? Have any new opportunities been opened up to us because of this? This is the first question. And second question, let's imagine that miraculously the special military operation has ended in Russia prevailing and the situation is coming back to normal. So what is going to happen? Are we going to get back into this comfort zone? Are we going to be opened to everyone else once again as it was in the past? Thank you very much, Fyodor, and hello to everyone. I think it is a great parallel between this dollar situation and the big tech technology situation, because everything is convenient, both are convenient. But I think after this throw-up in the current world, we have got an inoculation against this. So what Russia is currently doing is Russia is replacing technologies one by one. We start to do things by ourselves. But if you try to calculate how many different technologies people need, this is enormous amount of work. Is this right for this civilization at large to do this? So the answer that we have to ask ourselves is, do we have the choice? Can we craft such a cooperation, such a collaboration, when we are so interdependent that it ceases to become a problem? The problem, for example, like the problem with the dollar, is that we have different layers of people, different classes of people who own the technologies. So some countries have the right to build this small piece in the lower levels, but the frame of reference, the architecture of the technology is made by one country or two countries. This is an illusion of sovereignty, nothing else. So can we create such a collaboration in which the frame of reference is not exactly common, but it will protect everyone's interests, making sure that stronger players take care of the interests of the smaller players? And when countries have to craft some smaller pieces, they don't always go to the basic and smallest level. They can go to the highest level. So everyone is interdependent. Now, think about currencies. We all started with natural exchange, right? Exchange in kind. Then people invented money to make our lives more competitive, and then the dollar came in as a reserve currency. So this technology can bring us back to this more basic forms of exchange. When someone has dollars, I have rubles, colleagues have pesos, and we all kind of exchange in different ways. A lot of people say, we can't replace the dollar. We can replace the dollar. Technology does enable us to do all these online conversions and so on. And cryptocurrencies has given us one small example of how it can happen, but they have this very small disadvantage that they are not backed up by anything. So, it's not Russia that's facing this big question. This world is facing this big question. How do we craft the foundation of a new collaborative, participative infrastructure when everyone has their own place? A cyber-united nations, deliberating on common rules, how to attract smaller countries, how to make deals with larger countries, how to exercise political will. Because self-isolation and repeating the existing technologies looks like the most simple and the most understandable way, but the world is not going to go in that direction. Across the world, there is a huge demand for digital sovereignty, not against America or not against China, but against more or less everyone. Every country can take Maksud's definition of digital sovereignty, and every country wants to make a decision for themselves. Which technologies they field, who uses them, and to which extent. And any country, if they come and if they say, we have made this technology better than America, every country might be tempted to start kind of influencing everybody else. But we need to start collaborating. We need to start making deals. And Russia is in a unique position to actually, once we have learned all our lessons, can come up and say, it doesn't make sense to redo all these technologies. This does make sense. This doesn't. So my response is, just like with currencies, with technologies, the first thing you need to do is to get at the same table with all countries who are interested and try to make a participative deal. Maybe we cannot make a deal on the single security architecture, kinetic security architecture in the real world, but maybe in the digital world, it can happen. Yuri. But what if they don't want to get at the same table? So we write to the big tech companies, not just like anyone, but as regulators, and they just don't respond. They never say, we disagree, this is our policy, but maybe they're immature. Well, mature or immature, you can't negotiate from the position of weakness. Well, it is true that you can't. This is a cruel world. Might makes right, and if you don't have the might, you just can't negotiate. When I say we need to get at the same table, I don't mean people who think that they don't need a table to negotiate. Maybe we need to speak to the countries who might be dependent on us, the weaker countries. But what we shouldn't do, we shouldn't come as the future hegemon. We should come to them and say how to create your technological safety without over-dependence on us. All our journeys with cybersec across the world, they start with this disclaimer. We want to create the digital security for you to make sure that you are not dependent on others, but you are also not dependent on us. So to be as strong as the current incumbents, maybe we can't. But to come together with a collective of countries who collectively could negotiate on the terms of reference on how to live in this single digital world, that is something what we can do. Yuri is a romantic, are you? I'm a pragmatic romantic, right? I actually said I actually have noticed that there are a lot of beautiful women working in cybersec. Well, let's keep to the scientific discussion for a while. There is one question that I have prepared, and I think I will ask it a little later. It is very important, but I'll keep it for a little later. But since we have found a great analogy in currency, this is not the only good analogy. Sergey will prove me wrong, but I think there is an example in your sphere, OPEC+. And we all depend on them. And all these countries within the OPEC+, they compete against each other. They have very special positions in the energy world. And, well, our country has been at odds with Saudi Arabia for many, many years, right? But for many years, OPEC Plus has been coordinating, and it kind of works, and everyone expects it to fall apart, but it somehow doesn't. Maybe you have some experience that could be applicable to other spheres as well. OPEC Plus is very illustrative. It is hard, difficult to make deals, but we do, and we can say we are always capable. There is always a way if there is will. What I'd like to showcase is that, well, this is what I have been impressed by from the very beginning. We always treat flags with respect, but this creative solution, beautiful girls representing the flags of all countries have come up, and we have all seen how diverse we are, how beautiful we are, and again, how fragile we are. And I think this was very creative, this was very impressive, and I would even say this was very exhilarating for me.
многополярный мир.
We are living in a world in which new world order, a multipolar world order, is being shaped. What our place and what our position will be in this new world order depends only on us. And just I'd like to use this occasion to say a couple of words about the energy sphere.
Стратегию до 50-го года.
According to a presidential initiative, we have drafted our energy strategy between now and 2050. This is our vision of where we want to be in terms of energy in 2050. We are looking ahead.
Каким
We are looking at what the general composition of energy is, what the parameters there should be. We have already drafted the roadmap under this energy strategy.
просто невозможно.
And energy just can't develop without the digital world.
Вошла в область
Digital has penetrated energy so deeply.
Мы уже не видим.
We just don't see how we can exist without artificial intelligence services, without the digital twins, and so on.
И мы
Energy can be conditionally kind of divided into 4 parts. And I will talk about them, but later I would like to focus on electricity. So it all starts with oil, upstream, midstream, marketing of the end product, like motor fuels in our gas stations or petrochemical products in stores. The rest, the same happens with natural gas, the same happens with coal, and there is one sphere which is very digital and which is very AI dependent. It is the digitization and AI-ation of the electricity industry. Electricity industry is about the generation, storage, and transportation of electricity. And this is the part of the energy business that is taking the most important position in the world that we live in. And this is where we have to fight a lot of battles on different fronts. There is a presidential initiative, there is a special presidential directive to strive for technological sovereignty and technological leadership. And these are 2 different things. Technological sovereignty is about to ensuring that we have everything that the world has right now. Our objective under the energy sovereignty track is to have full control of all the basic technologies in the energy sphere, and they should be at least as good as those of our competitors. They should be better, but should be at least as good. Technological leadership is different. We understand what future technologies the world will need, and we are getting prepared to mastering those future technologies. What do we do to ensure technological sovereignty? So we have taken the classic Maslow pyramid with the food, heat, and water in the basis of this pyramid, and self-advancement of a human being and is on the top of this. So on the basis of this Maslow pyramid, we have created a model of the energy needs of our country. In the base, you have all the base energy types, but on the tip of this iceberg, you have the energy of the human thought, of human intelligence. Thanks to intelligence, human beings are capable of influencing nature and directing natural development. And this is why we hold huge responsibility for where we direct the energy of nature thanks to our intelligence. We can direct it toward human advancement or we can direct it to human destruction. We have seen a lot of that, and regretfully we are continuing to see how it's happening. So once we have created technological sovereignty on the basis of the energy needs of our country, we look at the availability of natural chemical elements that are used to generate energy. But again, you need the intelligence energy on top of this. Technological sovereignty in the energy business is just impossible to build in a single country. If you close down, you lose. And our president's position is very clear. We need to build the energy technology sovereignty with the friendly countries, exchanging, co-developing and co-advancing ourselves. Just like those girls stood here on one stage, we're all different, we're all very beautiful, but we're also very fragile if we are all by ourselves. Just on the basis of very simple principles like mutual respect, mutual interest, mutual assistance. Those very simple things, if we craft technological sovereignty on the basis of those very basic and very simple principles, and if we continue to develop and if we continue to recognize our responsibility to future generations for where we use our intelligence to direct the forces of nature. We need to understand that nature will influence us in return. We influence nature, yes, but nature will influence back. This just showcases how huge this responsibility is. I'd like to thank Yuri for inviting me to join this debate. Frankly, I was able to join at the last moment, but we have an agreement with Yuri that now the Energy Ministry will be represented by myself in the organizing committee, and I will be participating in the next event.
I do agree with the idea of, how do you say in Russian, многополярный кибермир. I agree on that. But if we speak about this многополярный мир, I think we should speak of women not only as beautiful representatives of country, but as well as a strong part of this change in the world. And I miss here in this opening scene a woman.
Я хотел пару слов добавить. Мне кажется, Сергей Евгеньевич такой...
I just wanted to add a couple of words. Sergey talked very interestingly about this Maslow pyramid, so with the bases in the base and the power of intelligence on top. But this is something you can say about any industry. And all those pyramids, if they stand together, they can form a star of exchange of ideas. Now, the power of intelligence, right? Exactly. Without cyber security, without cyber defense, you can't just create those stars. Do you remember those kaleidoscopes from our childhood? You just roll it around and all those color glasses inside, they create those different, very beautiful patterns. So I think this is the same you can say about the whole stack of industries. I do remember from the kaleidoscope that it was so horrible to break it down, because when you see that all those fantastic patterns actually consist of all those shards of glass, nothing else, it really disappoints. So this is why I think we just can't break this interoperability and interconnectedness. I really appreciate the Energy Ministry. If you have a vision between now and 2050, you're a big man, because right now people just can't plan for a year. And what is the basis for that long-term vision?
2050 год на самом деле
Well, 2050
очень мало.
is really not a very long-term thing. You have to have a longer vision than that. Just 2050 is just 2 generations ahead. How our grandchildren, great-grandchildren, great-grandchildren, how are they going to live? What kind of world they're going to inhabit?
Я с многими
This is what we are creating for them. People of my generation, when I talk to people of my generation, there is the general idea that we're not living for ourselves. We have done what we wanted ourselves. So our biggest motivation is to create a better world for our children. What are we going to live after ourselves? This is the biggest motivation, right? And since we are in the cybersec event, we need to remember that this Maslow pyramid is always under attack. The base, just like the tip of the pyramid. Energy business is under attack. Energy grids are always under attack, and intelligence, human thoughts are under attack too. And we know how very, very skillful people can turn a human into a robot, just doing what they are being told. Cybersecurity and everything that's around cybersecurity, this is why it is so important. This is why it is so pertinent to go and be very serious about defense against threats. Take electricity grid. Right? Electricity system is very dynamic because demand for electricity is always different, day, night, summer, winter. This system is very dynamic on the demand side. But at the same time, it is always under attack. It is always under danger of being subject to natural disasters like ice rains and hurricanes and fires and so on. There are a lot of man-made attacks as well, physical and lately digital. Just like any other system, I think you know how DDoS attacks happens, denial of service. So you can do kind of the same thing to an electricity system. When there is a peak of demand, and there are several other adverse factors on the other hand, like some natural aspects, some man-made aspects, and if you add just on top of that a cyber attack, you can really make sure that the system goes down. What are the consequences? Just imagine. Your phones go down and don't work. Well, we have seen something like that in some countries, yes? Exactly. And it is feasible. People can do that. I think you know what art attacks are. ARTs. So there are a lot of, let's call them adverse actors within our system. They have already placed themselves at different levels. They are readying themselves for action. And this is a threat which is even more pertinent than natural disasters, than kinetic disasters, because it is controllable and it is possible to start acting when the system is already under strain from other aspects. This is why we, the Energy Ministry, have to be very serious about providing cybersecurity to the most important sites of the fuel and energy complex. During the special military operation, these threats, the scale of these threats, and the evolution of these threats, very simple. The evolution is very rapid, and if we don't model this process, if we are not one step ahead of our attackers, there may be a situation in which we are overwhelmed. But I think that this atmosphere, friendly, calm, free atmosphere of big professionals, I think it is very easy to speak about that because most of the people here, they have come here with one goal, collaborating, not fighting. collaborating, making deals, negotiating, coming to agreements to create the cybersecurity of this whole world. So I wish all the participants, and what is the name of this forum, show, whatever? Festival, yeah, festival, okay. I do wish all the participants of this festival, the most important thing, we need to make sure that after this event, we get closer to one another. We get closer to taking a shared responsibility for the future of this world, for the future of this country, for the future of our children and grandchildren. And the Energy Ministry will be there when you're there. Thank you. Thank you for this. Now, I do apologize. I will come to our two other speakers, but since Maksud, I understand, will need to leave us a little earlier, I need to ask you two urgent questions. Question one. The energy sphere is planning until 2050. What about you? Well, if you listened to Sergey carefully, he told you that artificial intelligence has already penetrated the Energy Ministry. Our horizon is just 2030. We don't have that much artificial intelligence, thank you, because we actually focus on addressing risks right now. The situation is changing very quickly. 4 years ago, you wouldn't even think of the things that we're trying to address now. Right, it was unthinkable. Technology is developing very rapidly. Last year, we discussed here, unmanned aerial vehicles and things like that. So it would be very, very hard to forecast anything between now and 2050. What we know is everything's going to change. Everything's going to change very strongly. And the issue is whether we are adaptive enough. Whether we have the adaptive intelligence to master any emerging new technology, to take advantage of this, and to minimize the risks that we all face. Well, he's being too modest. He's being too modest. You want me to uncover everything? Well, because, for example, the Ministry of the Digital was a very big part of drafting our strategy. They were there to answer the question on what the digital future of the fuel and energy complex is going to be. They are just altruists. They just give, and they just don't have the time to take care of themselves. Right. Now, Maksud, second question, and I think it is conceptually, fundamentally important for everyone present. When people live through a crisis like this, everybody thinks that safety, security is the most important thing, no question there. But any responsible person, government, company, whoever, the first thing they are tempted to do is to turn the screws, is to close down everything, like again, circle the wagons. And I think this temptation is understandable, but I think if you overregulate, you just suffocate all the innovations. So does our approach take account of these risks? Well, it is very complicated to find this right balancing act between the opportunity of new technology and the risks of new technology. Cyber fraud is the simplest example. So cyber fraud currently is developing through messaging apps. So do we block messaging apps? Do we disable cyber fraud? And I think we are able to find this balance. It is difficult because different government authorities are responsible for different things. So we have to always discuss this and find those balances on each issue. But I think, dear friends, I think the government just can't do everything here, because the government is hamstrung with its role of regulator. Whether it's comfortable to use a technology and whether it is safe depends on all the great people here, all those young engineers, all those business people, whether they can come up with solutions how to stay safe from cyber fraud, but at the same time still use the underlying technology. Governments are really too slow and too hamstrung, too restricted to do this. Across the world, this is done by commercial enterprises and non-commercial associations. This is our duty here, to make sure that technology is not suffocated by safety issues. Just several days ago, someone called me. They said, I call from Sberbank. This is the biggest bank in the country. And as a person who knows that people who call from Sberbank are really cyber fraudsters, I just told them off. I told them away. But turned out they were really from Sberbank. It was such a big embarrassment. Okay. The balance among different countries. In this world, in this new world, there is something that we have never seen before. Countries that have never been looked at as important international factors suddenly become international factors. Big countries used to think, hey, we are big, all those small countries, they don't matter. But now, small countries, middle countries, become important factors of international life. We can't say that they influence everything, but they influence something. And in this connection, I'm grateful for having a representative of Qatar here. Qatar is a small country, okay? In the past, no one would even think that Qatar plays a serious international role, but it does, because of the various factors and so on, but it does. So, I have a question to Dr. Alisawi. First of all, how did you make it? Right? You don't have the population, you don't have the territory, you don't have the military might, right? But Qatar plays this huge role. And the most important thing is, to which extent are you ready to use your influence in the issues that we're discussing?
Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Thank you, brother. First of all, also thank you, Mr. Yuri, about this is an invitation. The first answer, we have a great leader, Prince Tamim bin Hamad Al Thani. He have a great vision. Also, we have assertiveness. We have good planning in Qatar. We have a great digital infrastructure in Qatar. We have R&Ds peer per day, hour per hour. Today, Qatar International have many companies coming from outside. They have today regional offices like Microsoft, like another companies. Also in Qatar, you know, we have many incubators like USTV to support any innovators specific in cybersecurity. We have in Qatar management for the big data, which is mean we want to protect this is big data. Today, Qatar Center and entrance for GCC countries. Qatar today bring many summits, as example, the Web Summit. They bring many expertise from outside. After that, this is expertise like Qatar. After 1 month, 2 months, 3 months, we see a new company from this is visitors, which is mean we have good opportunities in Qatar. We have fruitful work in cybersecurity in Qatar, but before we won't make a communication protocol specific in private sector. We have many companies in Qatar as a private sector. They have know-how, they have resources, but they won't make merge with the expertise from outside. As example, Russia Federation. Also in Qatar, we have a goal to make a new cybersecurity culture for a new generation, which is mean must create a new plans, a new resources, a new implement for these resources, bring a new expertise, prepare a new generation aware about cybersecurity dimensions, plus as example, in soft power, we have a new as Fulbright scholarship. We can create in cybersecurity scholarship to make as the private sector. I am talking now as private sector to make exchange between the students in cybersecurity. This is all soft power, you know, as private sector. Must create also new solutions to make more than awarenesses in cybersecurity. Now, one click, everything's damaged, you know. The war now, not war, Kalashnikov, the war no, knowledge no, and data no, you know, this is the problem. I think as Al-Adid business, our holding company, we're looking forward. Also, we have a dream to be our company, one of the pioneer in this world in cybersecurity, to protect the new generation and make awarenesses about cybersecurity through education. Today, the education gathering all people. Specific Qatar state allocate a big amount for education from the general budget. I am talking in 2025 as example, approximately we're talking 20 to 25% from general budget allocate for education, which is mean in Qatar we high educated, strong economy, strong organizations in IT. We have government support as private sector for all procedures, sometimes financing. We have smoothly procedures from government. We have incubators. We have many facilities in Qatar, as example, QSTB, Qatar Free Zone, FinTech Hub, and we support also from QDB, Qatar Development Bank. But we want three things to success in cybersecurity for a new generation. The first of all, strategic planning. This is the first of all, R&Ds, hour by hour. The last thing, flexible and smoothly communication. The problem now in the world, the communication. If we have good communication, we have good results, we have good prototype, a new storytelling for the next generation, we can put our names in the history for the future. Yeah.
Спасибо большое.
Thank you. Thank you for this.
Комплексное объяснение.
This was a very, very comprehensive explanation, but that's always what people say when they are asked comprehensive questions. Okay, I understand that the minister needs to leave, and just one last question, one last-minute question, let's say. Yuri has painted a huge and beautiful picture of this brave new world in which everyone is okay to make deals with everyone else. Good. But what about us? To tell everyone, let's make deals, we need to ensure that we are in the same mindset. Government versus business. Government versus one arm of government versus another arm of government. Are we in a position to say that we can make deals at least within ourselves? Between ourselves? Well, it's hard to say. We are responsible for three verticals: media, IT, and telecommunications. And our responsibility is to create the conditions for the development of the industry, think of government support, and so on. And from that point of view, we have great understanding. In all federal ministries, we have very good practice of placing digital transformation leaders in every region of Russia, and through these people we can influence the pace of penetration of digital technologies. And with these people we get the understanding of how best to transform the various verticals in the regions. We can assess who is better and who is worse, and so on. But since we were part of the development of the 2050 energy plan, looks like we are pretty good at this. However, comprehensive digital security is a very complicated story, because there are players who say that digital and cybersecurity needs to come together with the reduction in crime. I'll remind you, 40% of crimes committed in this country now is digital-enabled fraud. And the rate of solution of those crimes is not as good as the quote-unquote real-world crimes. This is why the government is working currently very proactively to try to mitigate the pace, the level of criminality. So it's hard to answer your question that yes, we are in a position to always make deals and everything, but we understand that it's hard to change for anyone. It's hard to change quickly. This is human nature, and it is, of course, not very simple to ask of people to change fast. But we are moving on, and I think we are quite good, quite good. Thank you very much for the participation. And I think I will add that the Ministry of the Digital is currently assisting us, and this is great work, in creating the methodology of assessing the cyber defense. Because we need to assess our sites, we need to assess our regions, how digitally protected they are. We are looking forward to this methodology, to this guidance being given to us, and we will use this guidance to really assess our defense. In my past life, I was a military officer, and I can tell you that it's all good to have digital exercises and tabletop war games, but until you really shoot at something that flies at you, you never know how good you are. So one thing is to have the guidance, is to have the methodology. Another thing is to try a real-life attack, is to pass a real-life test. This is very important, and it is our shared responsibility to really respond to this. Well, I think the very fact that we are having the energy minister on this panel, I think this is an answer to your question, how good we are in making deals within the government. We have started, for example, the stress tests for energy sites. We have started really introducing artificial intelligence. Very soon, they will not need us. They will drive their agenda ourselves, I mean, other arms of government. Well, from the point of view of cybersecurity, I think Sergei is being too modest, because he is really the pioneer of making sure that this methodology he's talking about Maksut and the industry. We are just assisting the energy ministry to understand what happens in their digital world, how their cyber defenses are assessed, how they're stress tested, and so on. So unexpectedly, the energy ministry is the pioneer in just forging out these brave new worlds. Well, just 1 minute, just 1 minute. In all panels, they always ask me to sit together with Maksud. I never understood why this is. Maybe we're all both bearded, maybe we look better on a camera, but I think we think on the same lines. We work on the same lines. These two ministries have been working as one team. This is why. Well, they are the only ministry that can switch off all the power. We have to be friends, right? Of course. You just can't do digital without electricity. Thank you, Maksud. Thank you so very much. Now, finally, I have a question to Denis. I do apologize for this, but this is along the same lines as Minister has talked about. We all understand that at the state level, it's easy to become interconnected. Now, private businesses, state-owned businesses, they work on the same field. The first topic is competition. I mean, you compete, you don't work together. And there are a lot of human factors, and there is a lot of other things. Which brings me to the question. Is the industry ready to a coordinated action to look for a shared vision? Thank you for the question. On the whole, well, we work in a very, very specific, in a very, very special industry. All the questions that you ask about competition and business culture and so on, they're not as strong in our industry as in quote-unquote traditional industries. 10 years ago, 5 years ago, when people from international companies, I mean not Russians, who came to Russia and they said, wow, I mean, we in our world, they would say, we all hate each other. If I'm Microsoft, I hate Google guys, and if I'm a Google guy, I hate NVIDIA, and so on and so forth. But how can you do that? How could you, within those 10 to 15 years that your industry has been around, how can you keep this spirit of a community? Because this niche of cybersec, people who really love this topic, it was very much romanticized in the very beginning. It was based on the culture of hackers. People who always wanted to know what's under the hood, how it all works, and so on. People who wanted to get control, they were never given by the strongest in this world. So this industry used to be a very small collective of people. Now it has grown to tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people, and it's hard, but we are succeeding to support this collective psychology. Well, I do believe you, but you don't have fully converging interests among various companies and among various segments of the sphere, because you don't work together. No, we don't, but our basic interests, they do converge. We have talked about sovereignty, right? Digital sovereignty. What is cybersec sovereignty? Cybersec sovereignty is not about replacing all the international technology with yours, just to put you into a position to control the endpoints or control the point of origin. Cybersecurity is about the level of trust in a technology that you can provide your users with, and it's about your understanding of what your data is about. This is what unites us, actually. Especially in the last years, all the companies that work in the industry, they have been working actually toward one big goal. Several weeks ago, we have seen the examples of de-digitalization, when, for example, people switch off your mobile communication and you suddenly end up in the world of the past. And in the beginning of the special military operation, the government would switch off the GPS, and it turned out that a lot of people just can't find their ways in the city without a navigator, right? So I would not say that our industry is about the same extent of commercial competition. And PH Days is just one of the platforms in which we can confirm that we really share the same ideology. In cybersec, we always say that business is business, community is community. Because if you look at cybersec people, you just can't say that all of them work throughout their lives for one and the same company. People working in different organizations and people working in one organization, they really do share different ideas, but we create examples of how we really can do different things and walk and chew gum at the same time. Competition is not, making bad things to other people. Competition becomes interesting when you have an interest in the competitor. Your competitor actually stimulates you to be more vigorous. We are romantics, yes, you're right. Because we have this bigger goal, creating such a digital world that brings about this idea of safety. This brings about the idea of control of what you have. Brings about the idea that technology should be in the service of the people. Competition is not about one country. Competition is about the whole world. Because when you do this, when you do things in one country, the added value from the change of the world is so much bigger than all the cost of competition that you don't have any doubts that it was worth that. It's human nature to want to be the best, is want to show everyone that you're the best. This is the engine behind progress. So we keep this dual spirit. As businesses, we do compete. But as people, we do compete toward the same goal. Cybersec is really a community. You just go around the stadium and you will not see organizations, you will see people. Well, thank you. Thank you for that. I think this has been a very inspiring discussion. I came here as really as someone whose understanding of these issues was absolutely virginal. I'm trying to lose this virginity. I started to lose that virginity, and that's a great thing. It was most awesome to me to find out that the Energy Ministry works in one team with the Ministry of the Digital. We, foreign policy specialists, we also need to work as one team with cybersec people, not because we need cybersecurity, that goes without saying. But I think this sphere is a model, I think, for our shared and desired understanding of the future world. We always say, as foreign policy specialists, that it is fruitless to forecast, let alone until 2050. But I think the atmosphere of this festival and what we discuss here is, I think, an example, is, I think, a great source of enlightenment for people of my profession. So we hope that our community will cooperate with yours. And Fyodor, for people who don't do cybersecurity as a business, I would suggest that they look at cybersecurity not as an industry, but as a fundamental part of our, hopefully brave, new digital world. Because this future world is not future anymore. When we talk about 50 years down the road, in more conservative industries, we have to look that far ahead, of course. Maksud said, we don't understand what's going to happen in the technology world in 3 years. This is what the digital world is about. Technologies, as they develop, they cancel the previous world. We don't recognize each other anymore. We introduce digital signatures, and this is how we communicate. And a lot of new technologies, they have just not emerged. This is not about cybersecurity. This is the security of this new world in which life is going to be good. Thank you. Thank you to our panelists, and thank you to our listeners. Someone promised me a master class on how to hack an ATM. That was very interesting, and I'm going to see it. And I wish you all a great festival. The whole sports arena will be just one big masterclass. You can hack an ATM, you can hack a kiosk selling sandwiches and so on. Hack everything and nothing will happen to you.